Every night, my wife locked our bedroom door. It wasn't always like that. At first, it seemed like a little quirk, something she might have done to feel secure or keep things tidy. But over time, it began to feel like something was off. I would ask her why she locked the door, and she'd smile, saying it was for privacy. I never thought much of it, until one night when something changed. Before we continue, please comment where you are watching from and subscribe so you can hear more stories like this. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was unusually quiet. The moonlight crept in through the small gap in the curtains, casting long shadows across the room. I looked over at Lisa, her peaceful face turned toward the wall. It had been a long day, and I was just about to drift into sleep when I heard it. A soft click. It was the sound of the bedroom door locking. This wasn't the first time I'd heard it, but tonight, I felt a pang of curiosity. Why was she locking the door? As I lay there, staring up at the ceiling, I felt a sudden surge of unease. I had never been the suspicious type, but something about tonight felt different. Slowly, I got out of bed, careful not to wake Lisa. My heart raced as I tiptoed to the closet. The door was ajar, and I slid inside, quietly closing it behind me. I couldn't explain why I felt so drawn to it, but I had to know what was going on. Was there something she was hiding from me? Was there something more to her nightly ritual than just a locked door? The minutes passed, stretching into what felt like hours. My eyes adjusted to the dim light, and I could hear Lisa's steady breathing. My thoughts swirled, each one more intense than the last. I was on edge, every muscle in my body tense with anticipation. Then, I heard it again. The soft click of the lock. But this time, it wasn't just the sound of a door being locked. There was something else. A rustling sound. Footsteps. They were faint but deliberate, coming from the hallway outside our room. My heart leapt into my throat. I held my breath, straining to hear. It wasn't just a random noise. Someone else was here, and my wife had locked me in the room. I waited, feeling the panic rise in my chest. The sound of footsteps drew closer. The door handle turned, and I could hear the faint sound of voices, low whispers. It was then that I realized the truth. Something wasn't right. I needed to know what was happening, but I was frozen, unable to move. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to confront my wife, to demand an explanation. But all I could do was listen, caught in a web of fear and uncertainty. As the voices grew louder, I felt my heartbeat echoing in my ears. There was no turning back now. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the sound stopped. The door to our bedroom opened slowly, and I held my breath. My eyes were wide with fear as I waited in the dark, hidden in the closet. What would I discover when the truth finally came to light? Would I ever be able to look at Lisa the same way again? The footsteps grew faint, and I knew the moment had come. I couldn't stay hidden forever. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and I gasped. I held my breath, my heart thumping loudly in my chest, as the door creaked open. I didn't dare move, frozen in place inside the closet. My eyes were wide, straining in the dark to see anything that would tell me what was happening. I didn't know what to expect, but my mind was racing with thoughts of betrayal, lies, and secrets that I never imagined my wife might be keeping from me. The footsteps I had heard earlier were now quiet, but I knew I wasn't alone. The door was open, and I could hear faint murmurs coming from the hallway. I strained to make out the words, but all I could catch were soft, low voices. That seemed to be arguing. I leaned closer to the closet door, pressing my ear against the wood, hoping to hear something more distinct. "I told you not to come tonight," Lisa's voice rang out, clear and sharp. My stomach churned as I recognized the tone. It wasn't the calm, soothing voice I was used to hearing. No, this was something different, urgent, almost frantic. "I had to see you," a man's voice replied, low and raspy. "You don't understand. You're making a mistake, Lisa. This is the only way." I stiffened. The man's voice was unfamiliar to me, but there was something about it that sent a chill down my spine. Why was he here? Why was Lisa speaking to him like this? And most importantly, why had she been locking the door every night? I couldn't take it anymore. My curiosity was eating away at me, and I knew I had to know what was happening. I slowly eased out of the closet, being careful not to make a sound. My bare feet barely made a noise on the hardwood floor as I crept toward the door, trying to keep as quiet as possible. The voices were getting louder now, more intense. I could feel my breath quicken as I slowly pressed myself against the wall, inching toward the crack in the door. I needed to see them. I needed to understand why everything felt so wrong. As I peered through the narrow gap, I saw Lisa standing at the foot of the bed, her face tense with anxiety. In front of her stood a man I had never seen before, tall, with dark, messy hair and an air of authority that made my heart race. He was staring at her with an intensity I hadn't seen in a long time. "You've got to stop this," the man said, his voice low but firm. "You can't keep hiding from the truth, Lisa. It's time to face what's been happening." I felt the world around me collapse as those words sank in. Hiding from the truth. What was he talking about? What truth was he referring to? I watched as Lisa's shoulders tensed, her eyes darting toward the door, as if she knew someone might be listening. She looked back at the man, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't understand. If anyone finds out, it's over. It will ruin everything. Everything." What could possibly be so important that she was willing to keep it hidden from me? The man took a step closer to her, his expression softening. "Lisa, you can't keep living like this. It's tearing you apart. You have to let him know. He deserves to know." I felt a rush of panic as my mind tried to process the conversation. Was this about me? Was this man telling Lisa to confess something to me? Before I could gather my thoughts, Lisa turned toward the door, her eyes locking with the crack where I was standing. My blood ran cold as she seemed to sense my presence. Without warning, she spun around and hurried to the door, her hand on the doorknob. I stepped back, my heart hammering in my chest, but it was too late. The door swung open, and Lisa froze when she saw me standing there, just a few feet away. "John," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her face paled, and her eyes widened in shock. What are you doing here?" I stood frozen in place, unable to form words. My mind was spinning, everything feeling like a blur as I tried to make sense of the scene before me. There was no denying it now. The truth had finally caught up with me. The man who had been standing by the bed walked past Lisa, his gaze hardening as he met my eyes. "It's time you knew everything," he said, his voice filled with finality. Lisa opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She looked from the man to me, her expression one of fear and uncertainty. "John, she began, but I couldn't take it anymore. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice louder than I intended, but I was past caring. "Why have you been locking the door every night? What's going on, Lisa?" She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. The man stepped forward, putting a hand on her shoulder. "You need to hear the truth, John," he said. "You deserve to know." But before he could say another word, I heard something outside the door. A loud crash. A scream. I turned, my heart racing in my chest as I rushed toward the sound. What the hell was happening now? I glanced back at Lisa, who looked even more terrified than before, and then at the man. "Stay here," I said, my voice shaking. "I'll figure this out. I need to know what's going on." But as I reached for the door, another voice rang out, and everything changed. The sound of the crash echoed down the hallway, sending a wave of dread through my body. My heart pounded in my chest, and every instinct told me to run. But I had no idea what I was walking into. I turned back to Lisa and the man, but they both stood frozen, their faces ashen with fear. "What was that?" I demanded, my voice trembling with urgency. Lisa didn't answer immediately. She was staring at the door, her breath shallow. The man, this stranger who had appeared from nowhere, looked equally alarmed, his eyes darting nervously between Lisa and the door. "We need to go check," he said, his voice low but commanding. "It could be them." "Who?" I asked, my voice rising. "Who are you talking about? What's happening here?" Lisa's face tightened, her lips pressing into a thin line as she looked away from me. She couldn't meet my eyes, and that hurt more than anything. I'd spent years trusting her, and now she couldn't even look at me. The man turned toward the door. "Stay here," he said to Lisa. "John, come with me. We need to get to the bottom of this." I hesitated, torn between staying with Lisa and following the man to investigate the noise. I had no idea who this man was, or what was going on, but there was a part of me that knew I had to find out. Something was terribly wrong, and the pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place. I nodded and followed him down the hallway, my footsteps echoing in the silence of the house. The hallway felt unnervingly quiet, the air heavy with the weight of unanswered questions. As we neared the source of the crash, the man's pace quickened, and I did my best to keep up with him. We reached the living room, and my stomach dropped when I saw what had happened. The window on the far side of the room was shattered, glass scattered across the floor. A large, heavy vase that had once sat on the windowsill was now lying in pieces on the ground, and the curtains hung loosely, torn where something had obviously been thrown through the glass. But that wasn't what shocked me the most. Standing in the middle of the room, holding a metal rod, was a man. His face was masked, and he was looking directly at me. The moment our eyes met, everything inside me froze. My pulse spiked, and I instinctively took a step back. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice hoarse. "What the hell is going on here?" The masked man didn't answer. Instead, he raised the rod, his stance defensive as he took a step toward me. I felt a surge of panic, and before I could react, the man I was with, the stranger, lunged forward, tackling the masked man to the ground. "Get back!" he shouted at me, struggling to subdue the intruder. I stood there, unsure of what to do. I watched in horror as the two men wrestled on the floor, the sound of grunting and crashing furniture filling the room. My heart pounded in my ears, and I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. This was all happening too fast. Then, I heard Lisa's voice calling from the doorway. "John, get out of there. You don't know what you're dealing with." I turned, stunned by the urgency in her voice. She was standing in the hallway, her face pale, and she was trembling. The fear in her eyes made my stomach drop. "Lisa," I called, rushing back toward her. "What is going on? Who is this man? What's happening?" "I can't explain it all right now," she said, her voice shaking. "But I'll try. You need to listen to me, John. You need to trust me. This isn't what it looks like." I was about to say something, but before I could, there was another crash in the living room. I turned quickly, my heart leaping into my throat. The masked man had broken free from the other man's grip and was now standing by the window, his hand gripping something. I didn't have time to make sense of it all, everything was moving so fast. Suddenly, the man in the living room raised the metal rod, pointing it toward me. His eyes were wild, and his mouth twisted into a strange, almost manic grin. "Stay away from her," he shouted, his voice filled with rage. "Who are you?" I shouted back, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" But the man didn't answer. Instead, he swung the rod at me with a terrifying speed. I barely managed to dodge the strike, stumbling backward as the metal rod missed me by inches. I knew I had to act fast before things escalated any further. The stranger in the hallway, Lisa's mysterious accomplice, charged forward again, tackling the masked man once more. This time, the struggle was even fiercer. But before I could process what was happening, the masked man broke free once again, taking off toward the door. "Stop him!" I shouted. The man from the hallway sprinted after the masked man, but he was too fast, slipping out the door before anyone could stop him. I stood there, heart racing, still trying to make sense of everything. But just as I thought the chaos was over, a loud crash came from outside. I ran to the window, my heart pounding in my chest. And what I saw next left me speechless. In the distance, the masked man was running down the street, but there was something else, something far more terrifying, waiting for him. It was another figure, emerging from the shadows, and it was clear that this wasn't over. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I knew one thing for sure, everything was about to change.
I stood frozen, staring out the window at the figure in the distance. The masked man, who had just broken into our home, was running toward something, or someone. There was no time to process everything that had just happened, no time to catch my breath. It was all happening too fast. The figure standing in the shadows wasn't just an ordinary person. They were tall, moving with purpose, their body language unmistakable. It was as if they knew exactly what they were doing, exactly where they were headed. And they were after the masked man. "John," Lisa's voice snapped me back to the present. "You need to get away from the window. It's not safe." But I couldn't look away. The scene unfolding outside felt like something out of a nightmare, and I had no idea what role I was playing in it. I didn't know who to trust. All I knew was that everything I had believed about my life, my marriage, had just been shattered. Lisa was standing behind me now, her hands trembling as she placed them on my shoulders. "John, please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. You have to listen to me. You don't understand what's going on. I turned to face her, my thoughts a blur of confusion, anger, and fear. I don't understand. Lisa, I don't understand any of this. What the hell is happening? Why didn't you tell me? Who is he? Who are these people? And why are they trying to kill us? Lisa flinched at the word, kill, but she didn't back away. She steadied herself, taking a deep breath before meeting my gaze. I never wanted you to get involved in this, she said, her voice thick with emotion. But it's too late now. You're already caught up in it. What do you mean, caught up in it? I asked, my voice rising. What's going on, Lisa? Who is that man? And why is he after us? After you. Lisa swallowed hard, her eyes filled with unshed tears. I don't know how to explain it, John. But it's not just about us. It's bigger than that. It's about the things I've done, the things I've been a part of. Done. Part of what? I was desperate now, but Lisa seemed to be fighting some internal battle, struggling to find the words. She took a step back and sat down on the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. There are people, dangerous people, who want something from me. And I've been hiding it from you. I should have told you, but I was afraid. I thought if I kept it a secret, I could protect you. But now I know I can't. Not anymore. I felt a knot form in my stomach, and my throat tightened. I wanted to understand. I needed to understand. But nothing made sense. Lisa, I said softly, my voice trembling. What have you done? She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. It's not something I'm proud of. I've been involved in things I should have never gotten into. People I shouldn't have trusted. And now they're coming after me. And you. I never wanted you to be part of this, but now it's too late. I could feel my mind spinning, trying to make sense of what she was saying. What kind of trouble could Lisa possibly be in? What had she gotten herself into? And why didn't I know about it? Before I could ask her anything else, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. My body tensed as I turned around to see the man from the hallway standing there, his face pale and drawn. His clothes were disheveled from the fight, but his eyes were hard, focused, as if he had just been through a war. We have to go, he said, his voice low but urgent. It's not safe here anymore. What do you mean? I asked, my heart racing. What's going on? Lisa stood up quickly, rushing toward the man. What happened? Where is he? Where's the masked man? He's gone, the man said, his voice strained. But we're not out of danger. We need to leave now, before it's too late. Lisa nodded, her face tight with fear. John, we have to trust him. He's the only one who can help us now. I looked between Lisa and the man, the weight of the situation crashing down on me. I didn't understand it all, but something in my gut told me that if I didn't follow them now, things would only get worse. Where do we go? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man looked toward the door, his eyes narrowing. I have a safe house. It's the only place we'll be safe for now. I nodded, still unsure of everything, but knowing one thing for certain, if I stayed here, I might not make it out alive. As we moved toward the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking straight into a trap. But there was no other choice. I had to trust them. I had to trust Lisa, even if everything in my mind screamed that I shouldn't. The moment the door clicked shut behind us, I heard a noise. A faint, distant voice. John, Lisa's voice whispered, and I turned to look at her. She was staring at me, her expression filled with guilt and fear. I'm sorry, she said softly. I never wanted this for you. But it's too late now. Before I could respond, we were out the door and into the unknown, unsure of what awaited us but certain that everything was about to change. And I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. We walked through the dark streets, the night air thick with tension. I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me, and the more I tried to make sense of what Lisa had told me, the more tangled my thoughts became. I didn't know who to trust anymore. Was the man we were following really here to help us, or was he part of the same web of lies and danger that Lisa had been tangled in? The man led us down a narrow alleyway, his eyes darting around, scanning for any sign of movement. We passed under a flickering street lamp, and for the briefest moment, I saw the fear in his eyes. It was the kind of fear that comes from being hunted, from knowing that danger is just one step behind. Lisa walked beside me, her hand gripping mine tightly. John, she said quietly, I know this doesn't make sense. I know you're angry and confused. But I promise, we'll figure this out together. I won't let anything happen to you. Her words should have comforted me, but they only made me feel more anxious. How could she protect me when she was the one who had put us in danger in the first place? How had we gotten here? Lisa, I said, my voice low, what are we running from? What did you get involved in? She didn't answer right away, her eyes focused on the path ahead. It's complicated, she murmured. I'll explain everything, but not here. Not yet. The man stopped suddenly, turning to face us. His eyes were hard and calculating. We're almost there, he said. Stay close, and keep your heads down. We can't afford to be seen. I nodded, my heart racing as I tried to take in everything that had happened in the past few hours. 1 minute, I was just a regular guy, living a normal life with the woman I loved. The next minute, I was running for my life, caught up in a dangerous web of secrets and betrayal. We rounded a corner, and I saw a small, nondescript building at the end of the alley. It looked like any other building, but the man seemed to know exactly where he was going. He motioned for us to follow him, and we moved quickly toward the door. The man pulled out a key and unlocked the door, pushing it open just wide enough for us to slip inside. Once we were inside, he shut the door behind us, locking it with a soft click. The room was small, but it was sturdy, with thick, reinforced walls. There were no windows, and the only light came from a single overhead bulb. It was cold, and the air smelled faintly of must and old wood. Is this the safe house? I asked, my voice echoing in the small space. The man nodded, his face grim. For now, it's the safest place we've got. Lisa went to sit on a small couch in the corner, her face pale and drawn. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. I joined her, sitting beside her, my mind racing. We're safe here, the man said, his voice low. But not for long. They'll be looking for you. We need to move fast. Who are they? I asked, unable to keep the frustration from my voice. And why didn't you tell me any of this sooner? The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced at Lisa, who was staring at the floor, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. I'll explain everything, Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. But first, I need to know if you're with me, John. If you can't trust me, then none of this matters. I looked at her, seeing the fear in her eyes, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I realized something. I didn't want to lose her. No matter what had happened, no matter the secrets, I still loved her. I trust you, I said, my voice steady. But you need to tell me everything. No more lies, no more secrets. Lisa took a deep breath, her shoulders sagging. I've been working for a group, she said slowly, her voice shaking. A criminal organization. They're involved in smuggling, extortion, and worse. I didn't want any part of it, but they found me. And when they did, they threatened to hurt you. So I did what I had to do to keep you safe. I locked the door at night, I kept you in the dark because I thought if I could just stay out of their way, they'd leave us alone. But I was wrong. They're here, and they want something from me. Something that could destroy everything. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Lisa had been working for criminals. The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted with my life, had been living a double life. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice breaking. Why didn't you come to me for help? I couldn't, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I was scared, John. I was scared that if I told you, you'd leave me. Or worse, they'd hurt you. And now it's too late. The weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. We weren't just running from some random criminals, we were running for our lives. The man stepped forward, his face stern. We need to leave. Now. They'll be here soon. I didn't have time to think. I grabbed Lisa's hand, and the three of us moved quickly to the back of the room. The man pulled open a trapdoor in the floor, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. Go, the man said urgently. We'll figure this out later. Right now, we need to stay alive. Without hesitation, I followed him down the stairs, Lisa right behind me. We were about to step into the unknown, unsure of where we were going or what awaited us. But there was one thing I knew for sure, everything had changed. There was no going back. The underground passage was cold and damp, the air thick with the scent of mildew and stale earth. We moved quickly, our footsteps echoing off the stone walls as we descended deeper into the ground. The only light came from a small flashlight the man was holding, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch on forever. I glanced at Lisa, her face pale and strained in the dim light. She was holding my hand tightly, as if afraid I would disappear if she let go. I couldn't blame her. I felt the same way. How much farther? I asked, my voice low and hoarse. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he kept walking, his pace steady but urgent. Not far, he said after a moment. We're almost there. As we continued down the narrow passage, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. My mind raced with questions, each one more confusing than the last. How had Lisa gotten mixed up with these people? What had she been doing all this time? And who were these people who were after us? The man turned sharply, and we followed him down another corridor. The air grew colder, the walls more jagged, as if we were descending into the depths of a forgotten world. The flashlight flickered, casting a strange, eerie glow on the walls, and for a moment, I thought I saw something moving in the shadows. But when I looked closer, there was nothing there. We're here, the man said, his voice barely above a whisper. We stepped into a small, dimly lit room. The walls were covered in maps, charts, and strange symbols. It looked like some sort of command center, a place where people made plans, dangerous plans. This is where we'll stay for now, the man said, shutting the door behind us. We'll figure out our next move in the morning. I turned to Lisa, my heart pounding in my chest. Is this really it? I asked. Is this the life we're going to lead now? Lisa looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. I never wanted this for you, John, she said softly. But I don't know how to fix it now. All I know is that we have to stay together. We have to survive. As I looked around the room, I realized that everything had changed. My life had been turned upside down, and I didn't know how, or if, I could ever go back to the way things were. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I knew one thing: I wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to lose Lisa, no matter what it took. As I stood there in the darkness, I realized that the road ahead would be long and dangerous. But I would face it with her by my side. And together, we would fight to survive.